Warnpi, sir. The cubs attacked the drone. Until the human whistled and they obeyed. Commander Vex Thor of the Galactic Reconnaissance Fleet had seen a lot of weird things in his 30 cycles of service. He'd witnessed the crystalline Zephrons communicate through interpretive dance. He'd watched the blob-like Glorthians argue about philosophy for 6 hours straight, which looked exactly like regular blobs just sitting there because, spoiler alert, they don't have mouths. He'd even survived that incident on Kepler 442b, where the local wildlife turned out to be sentient and very, very offended by his haircut. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, had prepared him for what he was watching on his monitor right now. "Explain to me again," Vex Thor said slowly, his 3 eye stalks bending at confused angles, "why the human female is making those noises at the apex predators." Lieutenant Zara, his second-in-command and the only crew member who actually read the human cultural database instead of just skimming the safety warnings, leaned forward. "I believe it's called whistling, sir." "Whistling?" "Yes, sir. And this whistling is supposed to do what, exactly?" "Confuse them before she dies." "I don't think she's going to die, sir." Vex Thor's main eye stalk swiveled to give Zara his best, "Are you actually serious?" look, which was quite impressive considering he didn't have what humans would call a face. "Lieutenant, there are 6 juvenile Raxian Dyraclaws approaching our survey drone." Juvenile Raxian Dyraclaws. Do you know what juvenile means in this context? Young, sir. Young and stupid and twice as aggressive as the adults because they haven't learned fear yet. And do you know what Dyraclaws do to anything mechanical that enters their territory? Destroy it completely, sir. Destroy it completely. We've lost 17 drones to these things in the past month alone. 17. Do you know how much paperwork that is, Lieutenant? Do you? Considerable, sir. Considerable doesn't even begin to cover it. I had to explain to Admiral Crix why we needed more funding, and he made that face. You know the face, the one where his gill flaps twitch. On the monitor, Dr. Mira Chen, the human xenobiologist assigned to their mission by the Terran Scientific Coalition, was calmly walking toward 6 creatures that looked like someone had taken a bear, a tiger, and a nightmare, thrown them in a blender, and added extra teeth for flavor. The cubs, each roughly the size of a human child but infinitely more capable of ending one's existence, had surrounded the survey drone and were taking turns batting it around like the galaxy's worst game of soccer. "Ma'am, this is Zara from orbit. Please maintain safe distance from the wildlife. Protocol requires minimum 50 meters from apex predators." Mira's voice crackled back through the comm and she sounded downright cheerful. "Zara, honey, if I stayed 50 meters from every apex predator on this planet, I'd never leave the landing pod. Also, your drone is about to become a very expensive chew toy. Dr. Chen, the commander insists. The commander can insist all he wants from up there in his nice, safe ship. I'm the one down here with the actual degree in xenobiology. Now hush, I'm working." Vex Thor's eye stalks nearly tied themselves in knots. "Did she just tell us to hush?" "She told us to hush. I'm a commander in the Galactic Fleet, and I've been hushed by a human who's about to be eaten. She does have 3 PhDs, sir. I don't care if she has 10 PhDs and a certificate in underwater basket weaving. Those are Dyraclaws. Dyraclaws." On screen, Mira did something that made Vex Thor's thorax tighten with secondhand anxiety. She put 2 fingers in her mouth and produced a sharp, piercing whistle that somehow carried even through the drone's damaged audio receivers. The effect was instantaneous and absolutely not supposed to happen according to every piece of xenobiological data they had on Raxian Dyraclaws. The cubs stopped. Just stopped. All 6 of them froze mid-maul, the drone hanging from one's jaws like a metallic toy. Then Mira whistled again, this time a different pattern. Short, short, long, like she was sending Morse code to creatures that definitely didn't know Morse code. The largest cub, the one with a distinctive scar across its snout that Mira had been tracking for weeks, dropped the drone. Actually dropped it. Then, and this is the part where Vex Thor seriously considered filing a report claiming mass hallucinations, it sat down. The other cubs followed suit. 6 juvenile apex predators, each capable of tearing through reinforced hull plating, sat in a neat little row like students waiting for class to begin. "What in the 17 hells?" Vexthor whispered. Mira walked right up to them. Just walked up, casual as anything, like she was approaching pigeons in a park instead of animals that had claws longer than her fingers and teeth that could punch through Kevlar. She made a clicking sound with her tongue, and the cubs' ears, all 12 pairs of them, perked up. "Good babies," Mira cooed. Actually cooed. "Who's a good baby? Is it you?" "Yes, it is. Yes, it is." "Sir, is she using baby talk on them?" Zara's voice had climbed at least 2 octaves. "She's using baby talk on them," Vexthor confirmed, feeling like reality had taken a coffee break without telling him. "She's using baby talk on creatures that can crack open a tank." Mira held out her hand. The scarred cub, the big one that the rest seemed to follow, sniffed her hand carefully. Then, in a movement that would haunt Vexthor's dreams for entirely different reasons than he'd expected, it rubbed its massive head against her palm. It purred. Araxian Direclaw, apex predator of a death world so dangerous the Galactic Council had classified it as visit only if you've written your will, was purring. "I need a drink," Vexthor said flatly. "I need several." "Drinks? I need drinks that haven't been invented yet." "Sir, I don't think you can drink with your physiology." "Then I'll evolve the ability, Lieutenant. I'll evolve it right now out of sheer necessity." Mira was now scratching behind the cubs' ears. All of them. They'd formed an orderly queue, waiting their turn for ear scratches from the tiny human who should absolutely not be alive right now. The scarred one kept trying to cut back in line, and Mira would point at it and make a sharp sound, and it would actually look sheepish and return to the back of the queue. "She's domesticated them," Zara breathed. "In less than 2 months on planet, she's domesticated the apex predators." "Don't say domesticated. Please don't say domesticated. That implies we understand what's happening, and I very much do not understand what's happening." Mira's voice came through the comm again. "Zara, tell your uptight commander that I need another drone down here. This one's pretty much scrap." "Dr. Chen, with respect, we can't just..." "Tell him if he sends me a new drone, I can get you footage of these cubs playing. Like, actual playing. Do you know how much the Zoological Federation would pay for that? Enough to buy him a whole fleet of new drones and maybe a ship that doesn't sound like it's held together with hope and recycled duct tape." Vexthor's eye stalks quivered with indignation. "My ship does not sound like..." "Okay, it sounds a little like that, but that's not the point. The point is we're not sending another drone into the murder zone." "Commander," Zara said quietly, "the Zoological Federation would pay for that footage. The science grants alone would fund our entire expedition for the next 5 cycles." Vexthor hated that she was right. He hated it with every fiber of his being. But he also hated paperwork more, and explaining to Admiral Crix why they'd run out of funding would involve so much paperwork it would probably achieve sentience and file complaints against him. "Fine," he sighed, a sound that came out as a sort of deflating wheeze through his breathing spiracles. "Deploy Drone Unit 18, but if it gets destroyed, I'm putting it on the Humans tab." "I can hear you, you know," Mira called out cheerfully. "The comm is still on." "I know the comm is on. That was intentional. Drone Unit 18's value is 7,000 credits. Put it on my tab. I'm good for it. Unlike your ship's stabilizers, apparently, which sound like they're crying for mercy every time you hit atmospheric re-entry." Zara made a sound that might have been a laugh, but quickly turned into a cough. Vexthor's eye stalks flattened against his head in the Vrexian equivalent of a glare. "Deploy the drone, Lieutenant." The new drone descended through Rax 7's atmosphere, its cameras immediately focusing on the scene below. Mira had somehow convinced the cubs to sit in a semicircle around her. She was pointing at different objects, various plants and rocks, and making different whistles and clicking sounds. The cubs were watching her with what could only be described as rapt attention. "She's teaching them," Zara said, wonder creeping into her voice. "Sir, I think she's teaching them commands." "That's not possible. The Raxian Direclaw has a cranial capacity that suggests only basic problem-solving skills and pack coordination. They don't have the neural architecture for... Mira whistled. 3 short bursts. All 6 cubs stood up in perfect unison. She whistled again. 1 long, 1 short. They sat back down. They don't have the neural architecture for that, Vexthor finished weakly. Apparently they do, sir. Apparently a lot of things I studied in officer training were complete garbage. Over the next hour, Mira put on what could only be described as a show. She had the cubs responding to different whistle patterns, following her hand signals, even playing what looked suspiciously like fetch with pieces of local flora. The scarred cub, which Mira kept calling Murphy, seemed particularly adept at following commands. Murphy, Vexthor said. She named the apex predator Murphy. Human naming conventions are often arbitrary, sir. It's a creature that could bite through tank armor, and she named it Murphy. Not something intimidating like Destroyer or Deathbringer. Murphy. It sounds like someone's accountant. Perhaps that's the point, sir. Humans do have that peculiar tendency to name dangerous things as if they're harmless. What kind of evolutionary advantage does that provide? In what scenario does looking at something that can kill you and deciding to give it a friendly name increase survival chances? I believe it's called optimism, sir. Optimism sounds like a great way to get eaten. On screen, Mira had pulled out what looked like food rations from her pack. The cubs immediately perked up, their attention laser-focused on the packages in her hands. But instead of lunging, tearing, or doing any of the violent things the manual said they would do, they waited. They actually waited. Mira made them do tricks first. A whistle here, a hand gesture there. Each cub performed, and each got a piece of ration as reward. Murphy naturally tried to go twice and got scolded for it, hanging its massive head in something that looked bizarrely like shame. I'm losing my mind, Vexthor announced to the bridge at large. This is how it happens. This is how a career officer loses his mind, not in combat, not in a diplomatic incident, watching a human train apex predators with snack food and positive reinforcement. Sir, incoming transmission from the Galactic Zoological Federation. They've been monitoring our feeds. Oh, good. Witnesses to my descent into madness. A new screen flickered to life, showing Dr. Zilthrone, a prestigious Vexlarian xenozoologist, whose tentacles were practically vibrating with excitement. Commander Vexthor, tell me that footage is authentic. Tell me we're actually seeing a human establish behavioral conditioning with juvenile Raxian Dyraclaws. It's authentic. Unfortunately. Unfortunately? Unfortunately. Commander, do you understand what this means? Raxian Dyraclaws have been classified as untrainable for 50 cycles. 50 cycles. Every attempt to establish communication or behavioral patterns has failed. Most researchers won't even go planetside anymore. We study them exclusively via drone, and even that has a 70% casualty rate for the equipment. Trust me, I'm aware. I've signed off on the replacement orders. And this human, this Dr. Chen, has not only established contact, but has created a functional command structure in less than 8 weeks? Apparently so. She's also insulted my ship, spent my drone budget, and given them all cute names. Cute names? The big one is called Murphy. Dr. Zilthron's tentacles stopped vibrating. Murphy? Murphy? That's delightfully absurd. I love humans. Commander, I'm authorizing an immediate grant of 50,000 credits to your expedition. I want full documentation of Dr. Chen's methods, hourly reports. I want to know everything. What she eats, how she sleeps, every whistle pattern, every gesture, everything. Sir, that seems excessive. Commander, if this human has cracked the code on Raxian Dyraclaw behavior, it could revolutionize our understanding of Death World apex predators across the galaxy. This isn't just about Dyraclaws. This is about understanding why humans can do things that every other species considers suicidal, and somehow make it look easy. Vexthor felt the weight of bureaucratic destiny settling on his shoulders like a very administrative rock. Understood, Doctor. We'll provide full documentation. Excellent. And, Commander, try to keep Dr. Chen alive. Humans are durable, but they're not immortal. regardless of what their behavior suggests. The transmission ended, leaving Vexthor staring at the monitor where Mira was now playing what appeared to be tug-of-war, with Murphy using a piece of reinforced cable. Murphy was winning, because of course it was, but Mira was laughing like this was the best day of her life. "She's insane," Vexthor said. "I'm commanding an expedition with an insane person." "Or," Zara offered, "she understands something we don't." "That's what I'm afraid of, Lieutenant. That's exactly what I'm afraid of." 3 weeks later, Vexthor found himself in the expedition shuttle, descending to the surface of Rax 7. He'd put this off as long as possible, but the Zoological Federation wanted an in-person inspection, and apparently, "But I'm terrified of the murder cats" wasn't an acceptable excuse for a commander of the galactic fleet. Mira met him at the landing site. Murphy and the other cubs lounging in a clearing nearby like this was the most natural thing in the world. They watched the shuttle with interest, but no aggression, which somehow made Vexthor more nervous. "Commander," Mira greeted him with a grin. "Welcome to the surface. Try not to look terrified. They can smell fear." "Can they actually, or is that just something you're saying to mess with me?" "Honestly, I have no idea, but you definitely should try to relax." "Relaxing? Right. I'll just relax surrounded by creatures that have claws called dire claws because they directly claw you to death." "That's not actually the etymology, but I appreciate the anxiety." Mira whistled, and Murphy's head rose from where it had been resting on its paws. Another whistle, and the massive cub rose and padded over, its movement somehow both graceful and intimidating. Vexthor's eye stalks tried to retract into his head entirely. "Easy," Mira said softly. "Murphy, this is Commander Vexthor. He's friendly. Mostly. A bit uptight, but friendly." "I'm not uptight. I'm appropriately cautious." "Same thing. Hold out your hand. Palm flat." "Absolutely not." "Commander, I've been living with these cubs for almost 3 months now. They've been around me during meals, during sleep cycles, during everything. If they wanted to hurt me, they've had about 1,000 opportunities. Trust the process." "The process sounds like a great way to lose appendages." "You're a Vrexian. You can regenerate appendages." "That doesn't mean I want to." But Vexthor, because he was a commander, and because the Zoological Federation was watching, and because Mira was giving him that look that humans give when they're judging your courage, extended one eye stalk forward slowly. Murphy sniffed it. Vexthor's 3 hearts all tried to stop simultaneously. Then Murphy made a sound, a sort of chuffing noise, and rubbed its head against the eye stalk gently. "Good Murphy," Mira cooed. "Who's being nice to the nervous commander?" "You are." "Yes, you are." It's not trying to eat me." "Congratulations on that bare minimum." "No, you don't understand. According to every piece of literature, every research paper, every scout report, this shouldn't be possible." "Yeah, well, according to every piece of literature about Earth animals, you shouldn't be able to train wolves into dogs, or wildcats into house cats, or any of the other dozen species we've domesticated." "But we did." "Know why?" "Enlighten me." "Because we're pack animals who see other pack animals and go, 'Friend?' Could be friend. We're wired to form bonds with things. It's both our greatest strength and our most bizarre weakness. We'll pack bond with anything that shows even the slightest possibility of bonding back." "That's insane." "That's humanity, baby." Murphy flopped over onto its back, exposing its belly in what Mira explained was a sign of trust. The other cubs joined it, creating a small mountain of deadly predators lounging like oversized puppies. "They trust you," Vexthor said quietly. "They do. And you know what? I trust them too. Not because they're not dangerous. They absolutely are. But because we've established understanding, communication. They know the boundaries. I know their signals. We've created something new here, Commander. Something that shouldn't exist according to the manuals." Vexthor watched as Mira sat down among the cubs, scratching behind Murphy's ears while the others jockeyed for position. One of the smaller ones, which she called Pixel, for reasons Vexthor didn't understand and was afraid to ask about. Climbed partially onto her lap despite being roughly her size. "Dr. Chen," Vexthor said slowly, "how did you know this would work?" Mira smiled. "I didn't. Not for sure. But I've spent my whole life around Earth predators. Wolves, bears, big cats. And you know what I learned? Every animal wants the same basic things: food, safety, social connection. These cubs? They're not that different from bear cubs back home. They play, they learn, they form bonds. The only difference is size and how many teeth they have. And the fact that they're classified as the most dangerous juvenile predators in this sector. Details, Commander. Details. Those are important details. Look, here's the thing about humans. We don't look at a dangerous situation and think that's impossible. We think nobody's tried it the right way yet. Sometimes we die. Sometimes we succeed. And sometimes we end up with 6 apex predator cubs that know 17 different whistle commands and respond to names like Murphy and Pixel. What are the other names? Oh, there's Artemis, Bandit, Chaos, and Noodle. Noodle? You named one Noodle. She's shaped like a noodle when she stretches. It fits. Vexthor looked at the cubs. These supposedly untrainable engines of destruction, lounging peacefully around a human who was a fraction of their size and possessed none of their natural weaponry. And yet, they followed her commands. They trusted her. They'd fundamentally changed every assumption the galaxy had about their species. "The Zoological Federation is going to want you to document everything," Vexthor said. "Already on it. I've got 300 hours of footage, detailed behavioral notes, dietary requirements, social structures, the whole package. They'll probably want you to present at the Galactic Scientific Convention." "Cool. I've never been to Proxima Station. Is it nice?" "It's a space station full of the galaxy's most prestigious scientists who will probably faint when you bring the cubs." "Oh, I'm definitely bringing the cubs. Murphy would be offended if I didn't." "You can't bring them. The station isn't designed for—" Murphy made a small, plaintive sound, looking up at Mira with what could only be described as puppy eyes despite being a creature that could theoretically eat the entire station's population. "See?" Mira said. "He wants to come." "That's not— He doesn't— You can't possibly— Commander, I've trained apex predators to respond to whistles. Do you really think station bureaucracy is going to stop me?" Vexthor realized, with perfect clarity, that he'd lost this argument before it started. It was a feeling he was becoming increasingly familiar with. "Fine, but when Admiral Crix asks why there are Dyraclaws on Proxima Station, I'm telling him it was your idea." "Deal. By the way, your ship does need new stabilizers. That rattling really isn't normal." "I know the rattling isn't normal. I've filed 17 maintenance requests. Do you know what Fleet Command says? They say it adds character." "To be fair, it does add character. Just not the character you want." 3 months later, Vexthor stood in the observation deck of Proxima Station, watching as Mira gave a presentation to the Galactic Scientific Convention. The cubs, now considerably larger but still responding to her commands, were demonstrating various trained behaviors to an audience of scientists whose appendages were trembling with excitement, terror, or both. Murphy performed a perfect recall command, bounding across the demonstration area to Mira's side at a single whistle. Noodle showed off her ability to retrieve specific objects on command. Chaos, ironically the best behaved, demonstrated complex problem-solving skills. "It's unprecedented," Dr. Zilthran was saying, his tentacles doing excited loops. "Absolutely unprecedented. Dr. Chen has single-handedly rewritten our understanding of Deathworld apex predators." "She's also given me more gray hairs than I knew I could grow," Vexthor muttered. "What was that, Commander?" "Nothing, Doctor. Just reflecting on the nature of interspecies cooperation." On stage, Mira was fielding questions from the audience. Someone asked about danger protocols. Her answer was essentially, "Don't be stupid and respect their space," which was both completely accurate and entirely unhelpful from an academic standpoint. Someone else asked about replication, whether her methods could be taught to other researchers. "Absolutely. Mira said confidently. As long as those researchers understand that you can't just follow a formula. You have to actually care about the animals. You have to see them as individuals, not just specimens. Treat them like the intelligent, social creatures they are. Basically, don't be a jerk, and they probably won't eat you. Probably, someone in the audience squeaked. I mean, they're still apex predators. Let's not get crazy here. Zara appeared at Vexthor's side. Sir, I've been analyzing the economic impact of Dr. Chen's work. And the Zoological Federation has increased our funding by 300%. We've received research grants from 17 different institutions. There's a waiting list of scientists who want to join our expedition. And someone wants to make a documentary called Humans, They'll Bond with Anything. Of course they do. The documentary producer asked if you'd be willing to provide commentary. Absolutely not. They're offering 50,000 credits. Still no. Sir, that would cover the ship repairs you've been complaining about. Vexthor's eye stalks drooped with the weight of resignation. Fine, but I reserve the right to sound incredibly skeptical throughout. I don't think that'll be a problem, sir. On stage, Murphy had decided it was time for attention and had simply walked up to Mira mid-sentence and demanded ear scratches. The audience watched in awe as the massive Claw, easily capable of decimating the entire convention hall, sat patiently while Mira scratched behind its ears and continued explaining behavioral conditioning techniques. You know, Vexthor said quietly, when I signed up for this expedition, I thought we'd be cataloging flora and taking mineral samples. And instead, we're revolutionizing xenozoology, Zara added. I didn't ask to revolutionize xenozoology. I just wanted a quiet survey mission where the most dangerous thing was filing reports. But you have to admit, sir, it's been interesting. Vexthor watched as Mira got all 6 cubs to sit in formation, responding to a complex series of whistles that she made look effortless. The audience erupted in applause. Several scientists were openly weeping. Interesting, Vexthor agreed. Also terrifying, bureaucratically complicated, and responsible for at least 40% of my stress levels. But yes, interesting. Murphy looked up at the observation deck, somehow making eye contact with Vexthor across the distance. The massive creature's tail swished once, a gesture that Mira had taught him meant contentment. Against all logic, all training, and all common sense, Vexthor found himself swishing one eye stalk back in acknowledgement. Did you just wave at the Claw, sir? Zara asked. No. It looked like you waved at the Claw. I didn't wave. I was simply adjusting my eye stalk position for optimal viewing. Uh-huh. I'm the commander. I don't wave at apex predators. Of course not, sir. Down on the stage, Mira whistled the pattern that meant all done, and the cubs visibly relaxed, breaking formation to investigate the stage with curious sniffs. One scientist was brave or foolish enough to hold out a tentacle for Artemis to sniff. The Claw, following Mira's training, sniffed politely and then rubbed her head against the tentacle gently. The scientist fainted. And that, Vexthor said, is exactly why humans are terrifying. They don't just survive the impossible. They make friends with it. And then they teach it tricks and name it things like Murphy and Noodle. It's oddly endearing, sir. It's a galactic health hazard is what it is. But as Vexthor watched Mira Chen, human xenobiologist and apparent miracle worker, accept a standing ovation from the galaxy's scientific community while surrounded by 6 apex predators who would follow her anywhere, he had to admit something. Maybe humans weren't crazy. Maybe they just understood something the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. That communication beats classification, that trust beats terror, and that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't the predator in front of you. It's underestimating the tiny, squishy creature who decided that predator could be a friend. And that, Vexthor realized, was the most human thing of all. The end.